6:42 tonight. So let's start with a roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Ottinger?
Here.
Commissioner Fernandez? Here. Vice Chair Hanley?
Here.
And Chair Fritz?
Here.
All right, we have 4 members in attendance with Commissioner Burns absent today.
Thank you. Next item is for comments from members of the public for items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone would like to make a comment, anyone in the room? Let's go to Zoom. Linda, you can unmute yourself and make your comment. Linda, do you have a comment for the Planning Commission? Is there a reason she can't unmute herself, or are we to assume she's not around? She's not around. Okay. Then I will move on to statements of conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest this evening? Okay, then we have approval of minutes from May 14th. Any comments on the minutes or motions?
I move we approve the minutes of May 14th, 2024.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Let's have a vote, please.
Yes. Commissioner Ottinger?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez? Aye. Vice Chair Hanley?
Aye.
And Chair Fritz?
Aye.
So that motion passes 4 ayes with 1 absent of Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. Next item, we have a public hearing on 6828 Depot Street, the Hotel Sebastopol Development Agreement and Ordinance. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. What's before you tonight is an ordinance and a development agreement attached to the ordinance for your consideration to make a recommendation to the City Council. The Hotel Sebastopol has the entitlements, an entitlement package that was actually granted in 2017. This project site is located in the core of the community. Hotel Sebastopol, as proposed and entitled, by the way, is a 66-room hotel. It would operate 24/7. It would have a restaurant, a bar. It would have various studios, a wellness feature, and public courtyard and gardens. This proposed project, while approved in 2017 and then in 2018, there was a fee reduction and deferral agreement approved by the city. This package is in place, and the developer has moved forward and secured a building permit and has kept that building permit active, by the way. The developer has secured the property, has applied for a federal loan to move forward to develop the project. The applicant has moved forward with applications to Caltrans for encroachment permits and also an application to PG&E for electrical services. So there's been a fair amount of work done over these number of years since 2017 in terms of readying the site for development. As I think we all know, during this period of time, though, we have had the coronavirus pandemic, and that hit the hospitality industry significantly, where we have also experienced higher interest rates. So while there's been a lot of development on this project in terms of readying it for construction, there's been a pause. I'll call it a pause in terms of trying to get the construction financing in place, and therefore the developer is asking the city to enter into a development agreement to basically extend the permits, the entitlement package that's currently in place. This would include the building permit, for example. The developer has asked for 2 years, and in discussing the status of the proposed project, realizing that interest rates continue to be high, that while there is an application for a loan to move forward with the project, they won't hear about that until sometime this summer. And again, the interest rates are high, et cetera. We're suggesting in the staff report that the time frame for the extension be 3 years instead of 2 years. And we have put in your staff report package an ordinance and also a development agreement. And also with the development agreement, we have added the fee reduction and fee deferral agreement for transparency and for your information. So our recommendation tonight is that you go forward with recommending City Council approval of the ordinance and therefore the development agreement with the entitlement package. As we describe in the staff report, a development agreement is allowed for by state law, also by local ordinance, and in reviewing the circumstances surrounding this request and also working with our city attorney and outside counsel, we believe that the required findings for this recommendation to City Council for approval of the development agreement is warranted. And with that, I'd be happy to respond to any of your questions. Again, our city attorney is in the audience this evening if you have any legal questions regarding this matter. And again, this is a recommendation of your body to the City Council on the ordinance with development agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff? Go ahead, Kathy.
I would just ask if there were any edits or substantial changes since the last time we reviewed this.
No substantial changes. I believe that your board, your commission had requested some fairly minor changes, and those were addressed by the city attorney and outside counsel. I should point out that Chair Fritz did send staff an email today, and he noted on page 2 of the ordinance, item 5, there's a reference to town, and it should be city, and we would definitely correct that. I apologize for that, but we'll definitely correct that, and thank you for noting that.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. So that intersection, McKinley, where the Whole Foods is, and it's kind of a 3 or 4 kind of a tricky part there. I know we've been kind of waiting for the hotel to do anything, and there's supposed to be like a crosswalk and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Just wondering if that's also going to be put on hold, or is there anything going to be moved forward on that?
I'm not aware of any specific improvements that would occur in the meantime. I think that one thing that we've reached out to the applicant, the representative, about is better maintaining the site. The site is quite overgrown right now. There's down fencing, and I would certainly expect that during this interim period, and it is a requirement of the development agreement extension, that the site be maintained. This is in the city's core area. This site should be well maintained during this period. No question about that. I'm not expecting, though, that any particular improvements outside of maintenance would be done until they're able to secure financing and move forward with their overall building permit package.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Would the applicant like to make any comments?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Daniele Petrone, and I'm the project manager with the Hotel Sebastopol team. I think we've made a number of presentations to this body where some of you might know the project better than we do at this point. So I think we're mostly just here to answer any questions you might have about our plans, our status, the development agreement itself. Before we get into that, though, I do want to offer up just 2 quick updates for you. One is about the condition of the site itself. As some of you may know, we had been dealing with some issues related to camping on our Brown Street lots. We hopefully have solved that issue. We've now fully fenced in our Brown Street parcels. And now that we have, we are scheduled to conduct full site weed abatement for both the the full block site on Petaluma, as well as the Brown Street parcels, just to as the planning director said, keep the site in better maintenance than it is currently. And we also have some fence maintenance issues as well. Along Depot Street, I believe a few cars have hit our existing chain link fence, and it's as a result it's leaning. And so those improvements are in the works. And then as it relates to our project financing, thankfully we have finally entered into an archaeological agreement with the USDA, which, as you I think are aware, and as we said in our update letter to you that's in your agenda packet, was the biggest item that was holding us up. It took us about a year and a half to enter into that agreement. And so now we're in a sort of more traditional timeline in terms of closing, where they're telling us by midsummer, we should be in a place where we can close on the loan. Unfortunately, the economic reality is such where the rates that we get might still make the project infeasible to build. But the good news with our loan package is that once we get the funding allocated for the federal program, we have a full year on which we can actually close on the loan. So we have a full year to actually wait for rates to become lower so that the project can actually pencil. In addition to that, we are exploring additional, more traditional financing options, both with traditional banks and also via raising more equity to lower the loan amount and therefore make even a higher rate loan allow the project to move forward. So that is in the works. Obviously, it's a little bit trickier with traditional financing in a market like Sebastopol for a project like ours. It's an unproven market, but we're trying to see what's out there in an effort to have a plan B solidly in place if this current financing package doesn't quite make the project pencil. So those are my two updates. Again, I'm joined here by Paolo Petroni and Cersei Scher. They're both principals with our firm, and we're happy to answer any questions you have about us. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant? All right. Then I will open this up for public comment. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, and I see we still have Linda's hand raised. Linda, would you like to make a public comment on this development agreement for the Hotel Sebastopol?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I was furiously trying to pushing *6, for the public comment. And so I'd still like to have my 2 minutes on that because the problem was not on my end.
Well,
Anyway,
Linda, I'm willing to give you that after this item. If you want to make a comment on this item, then once we finish
Thank
this
you.
item, I'll let you make your public comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. So anyway, on this item, I'm just looking at the agenda here, and you all may or may not know I am electrosensitive, and I am computer free, cell phone free, TV free, and largely electricity free in order to survive. So anyway, but what caught my attention on this hotel development was that apparently they are touting a rooftop deck. Now, if they did that, it would be just a couple 100 feet or less from the south radiation domes that are atop theater. There's multiple transmitting antennas there that are concealed for, so the public doesn't know what they are on top, and whoever is in or on the roof of this deck would be getting fried. But also, even these, as you know, microwaves go through the building walls, and so this just not really a good idea for a multi-story building with people in it. So, but aside from that, we don't have the infrastructure. Right now we just lost our third cop to Corner Park. They're defecting left and right because they're not getting
30
respect.
seconds.
So anyway, we lack the infrastructure and the finances. We were in a financial crisis. So frankly, this project I'd like to see not happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Linda. And seeing no other members of the public, I will close public comment and bring this back to the commission for any further discussion or motions.
Yeah, I think it's, pretty reasonable, all the stuff that they've been going through. and, what they're asking and moving forward in good faith. So I'd like the motion for approval.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further comments or discussion? I just have a question about, so the staff report recommends approval with a few conditions, but I don't see, like, the conditions aren't in the ordinance. Like, how are we codifying the conditions? Is there some, are we making a separate resolution of findings with these specific conditions, or I'm just kind of wondering what the process is for.
Actually, I think in terms of citations, they are in the ordinance.
Oh, they're in the ordinance? Okay, I'm sorry, I must have just missed them. So it's the 3-year extension, which I think that was in the ordinance.
Yes.
And the fee agreement was in the ordinance. I guess the question was the site maintenance, that's also in the ordinance? Okay, great. Okay, then we have a motion and a second, and we'll take a vote.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
and Chair Fritz.
Aye.
All right, so that motion passes 4 ayes with 1 absent of Commissioner Burns.
Great, thank you.
And this will be going to City Council. This is a recommendation to City Council, which will be coming to their July 2nd meeting.
Great. Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
People ask me regularly, when's the hotel coming? So people are anxiously waiting, and I'm sure you are too. I'm sure you're waiting as well. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So next item on our agenda, I will let Linda make her public comment if that's with everyone else. So Linda, are you still there? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and make your public comment on items not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm meeting her.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Well, today is it's both been an appalling thing and also an enheartening thing. Listening to the previous design and pre-board meeting, so I was heartened by Christine Level recognizing the canopy project to be an environmental disaster that it is. And also, I'd just like to let you know that I was also the process of notifying the public. They have to, and I believe it's within 45 days. So anyway, I'm just saying that I have asked for a rehearing on the canopy project because they did not notify in that 45, give us 45 days, because I walk and ride my bike every day just about on Hurl. But the first time I saw a notice of today's hearing was on the 9th of May, which is a lot less than 45 days. So heads up on that. Also, they prevented me from speaking on the canopy project. Whoever's the chair, he just arbitrarily decided that he wasn't going to take public comment. So I have asked for a rehearing on that. I'm demanding a rehearing on that whole canopy project. But anyway, the rest of you for okay, you need to know, we're in a financial crisis, and we need to, brakes on the building because we don't have the infrastructure, the wastewater, the sewage, and the water infrastructure, and not to mention the traffic to support all of these projects. We're just. So anyway, I am hoping that you will come to your senses and brakes on these buildings before we go into bankruptcy, which is looming close nearby. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I know we don't typically comment on items not on the agenda, but I just have a clarification for the canopy project. I mean, wasn't that public hearing happened the previous meeting, isn't that correct?
Yes, the public hearing was opened at the meeting last month and then closed. And then the project was continued to a date certain, which during that component of it, we're not required to do the regular noticing because it was noticed in a public meeting. So that is why there was no kind of recirculation of the notices. The applicant, however, did update the signage at the 3 corners of that site. So that is not a requirement of them, but it was something that we did ask them and they were able to do. So that is why there was no public comment component of that meeting, because the public hearing was already open and closed.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, we'll go to subcommittee updates, which I'm assuming there are none. And then the planning director's report, please.
No, I don't really have a formal, report this evening. I appreciated your comments, and we have forwarded your comments regarding the reorganization to the city manager. And as I think some of you heard, we're also checking in with the design review board, tree board, to get their comments. And when I send them an updated email, I'll be letting them know what you had decided on, since the idea is to merge your 2 groups. I want to make sure that they're aware of kind of where you came from as a group in terms of your feedback, and they can be aware of that as they feedback to us, and then we provide that information to the city manager. In terms of the overall budget, obviously the city staff continues to work on the budget, kind of looking at a projected budget gap that needs to be closed, and looking at all opportunities to close that gap, and then present a balanced budget to the city council for consideration. It's requiring quite a bit of work of a lot of staff members, and these committee, board, commission reorganizations is a part of that overall discussion. But that's a focus for us right now, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a comment on, just want to make sure that the park commission part is also included, because it's right now it's just like it's the planning commission, and oh, by the way, you guys are supposed to do stuff for parks, but indeed that we are the parks commission as well. So I think it just needs to be listed and aware that it's going to be the 4 agencies or 4 organizations together.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Thank you.
I have another update as far as the Sustainable Transportation Grant, which looks at the reorganization of Main Street. We finalized our contract with the consultant Fair and Peers last week. So we'll be looking at starting those kickoff meetings with the consultant and stakeholder groups and stuff like that. So that process will be starting here very shortly. I know that they had wanted to get in some traffic counts before the school year got out, but unfortunately, so does a lot of other agencies in the area. So they will be kind of pushing that component a little bit further on towards the fall when school gets back in. But there are other components that they can start working on now, kind of engaging the stakeholder groups and such like that. So we'll be looking at doing some of those events here in the near future.
How are those kind of meetings, or who's determining like who's a stakeholder and how those are getting kind of set up or organized, and who's being talked to, I guess? Yeah.
So, I mean, staff and the consultant are trying to reach out to, the business owners, or downtown association would be one of the stakeholder groups, looking at just groups that we've been in contact with since that grant was released, for people that are both for and against the two-way component. So, individually reaching out to those groups and trying to get, their initial feedback and stuff like that. Obviously, there'll be more public participation as the project goes on, but trying to get those initial groups. If you have groups that we're not aware of or the staff's not aware of, I'd encourage the commission to to send those over to us as recommendations, and then we can reach out to those groups and see if they'd be interested in starting that discussion before it gets to a point where they feel like they were left out and weren't included at the early stages. So
I'm just gonna, there was a group, very informal group that was really kind of critical to getting this grant applied for. And so I don't know in terms of, they're not like a formal entity to reach out to, but I know people from that group, I mean, mostly downtown business owners is what they were, but they were very helpful in pushing the council and, coming to meetings and speaking up in favor of applying for the grant. So I'd like to somehow not just sort of broadly hit like the chamber or the downtown association, but kind of hit those specific business owners and people that were involved in that as being kind of a stakeholder, at least to initially start. Is that possible to have that?
yeah, if you are aware of who those people are, please send them my way or let me know and I can reach out to them. Don't know everybody in town, but would definitely work with the consultant group, and if it's not something that staff can initially reach out to, at least the consultant group can kind of start. So it's more of a neutral body. Neutral body.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was planning to attend the public meeting last week. I didn't make it, so I'm just wanted to see how it went.
Sure. Yeah. So you're speaking to the active transportation plan. We had a workshop at the Art Center just down the way here. And we had a lot of good outreach and input into that event. I would say we were there for 2 hours from 4 to 6. The first hour and a half of it was pretty front loaded as far as, as I got to my little station area and there was about 4 or 5 people waiting to kind of discuss the proposed project and tiers that you had seen from the presentation from SCTA. So kind of me being the city staff person, kind of giving our perspective on how we tiered these programs and projects and stuff like that. So it was well attended. I don't know the numbers for sure. I know that the SCTA folks had a sign-in sheet. My rough estimate every time I kind of looked around when I got a chance, I would say there was probably close to 60 to 70 people throughout the 2-hour time frame. So, for our small little city, that's a big outturn. And, bikes are very important around here. And, a lot of people wanted to make sure that their comments from the first outreach component, which was the interactive map and some of the other things that we did, were being included. So there was a couple comments that, they weren't sure if what they actually put on the map was shown in the second one because it's a little bit different, but it's something that SCTA is working with to see if they can put both milestone updates as far as the public comment that was received on that overall map.
If I could, I attended briefly and kind of observed. And John, I noticed that there were a lot of post notes with specific comments on maps. When are those going to come forward? So like the commissioners and others would get a sense of like, well, what kind of comments were received and at what intersections or in general?
That's a good question. I think I can reach out to the SCTA folks to get, potentially like an update memo from that meeting and then share it with the board as part of something that goes out, or, if we need to agendize it as part of one of your next upcoming meetings. I think that should be a relatively simple request, as they did capture all of those posted kind of notes and comments and stuff like that for the specific programs and policies within city limits. And then they also had a section that kind of linked some of the outlying trail connections from West County and the unincorporated sections and how they intertwined with the city of Sebastopol. So Joe Roberta Trail, West County Trail, and stuff like that. So kind of giving some of those folks that are just outside of city limits, the opportunity to weigh in.
Another comment I sent to all of you, and I'm not sure if you were able to open it. I hope you were. Training information and from the American Planning Association. So I'm hoping that you're able to open and review and use that information. If you have any issues with that, let me know. And I know that some of you have indicated an interest to continue to have trainings. And I know that John has been able to log into Carrie's account, I guess. And so we will, as we have agendas like this that are more limited, make sure that we have trainings. But in terms of the information I sent to all of you, there's quite a bit there actually. And I hope it's useful. And if you have any questions about it or have some thoughts in terms of, would you like to discuss some of that information, topic by topic. So I'd appreciate getting your feedback in terms of how might you want to use that in terms of, I know it's for you individually, of course, but would you want to bring some of that information forward to a light agenda meeting for discussion? And if you let me know, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I can give you feedback on that now. And
Okay.
I would love to have, I think it's been useful when we've done these other Plan Citizen training sessions to have them in the room at a meeting, because then it makes us watch them. Okay. And it also, then we would discuss them. And I, as good intentioned as I am, when I have something to do kind of on my own time to review a planning commission training video, and I have other things to do, sometimes the planning commission training video kind of gets getting pushed down the list. So I would just say that as much as possible, I think doing that in meetings is more useful and more likely for all of us. I'm maybe just speaking for myself, but I know I'm more likely to watch it when we have to sit here in a meeting and watch it rather than carving time out of my own schedule to
and
sit down and watch it.
picking topics of things that might be coming up, or maybe prioritize which ones are more relevant might be useful for us.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a quick question just to jump back to the pending study of Main Street and two-way traffic. It was noted, I think the last meeting or maybe the meeting before, that this has been studied previously. Is that true? Okay.
That's my understanding. I believe there was a study on that done in the 80s or.
Yeah, my understanding is that the streets were converted to one way like in the early to mid 80s once the train left.
Yeah.
And it was something that was actually voted on.
Okay.
Which was very unfortunate, but it was.
Right.
And so I think if that were to become a recommendation, we would actually have to vote on it again to undo the previous vote.
Okay, so there isn't a study from like 10 years ago.
No,
It's way out of date.
There was a study because I was on the General Plan Advisory Committee. So there was a kind of broad, not a very detailed study, but that was something that was discussed as the general plan update process was underway.
Okay.
Should we go back to two-way streets? And the traffic consultant on the General Plan Advisory Committee was W-Trans. Did kind of a broad overview. Is this feasible? Would that be feasible? And they said, yes, it would be feasible. Okay. So it actually made it into the general plan as to, I think the general plan has a policy or a program or something to investigate a two-way street.
Yeah. I believe that there was, so I think W-Trans did a fatal flaw analysis
on
that. So that was done.
That was done within the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's probably the most recent document that we have.
Okay.
And I'm happy to share it with the Planning Commission.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sending it out, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Thank you.
We'll just want to sort of speak to that, because I know, we had that comment. We've had a couple of comments about that at our meetings about, we shouldn't be reviewing this, and then there was an effort to try to get the city council to omit that from the grant. And I think that, in my opinion, like this has been talked about a lot, questioning the one-way street system, and this is the time to kind of revisit that. And I understand it was maybe controversial and that there's a lot of painful memories about it or something from people who were at the time, but there was a lot of people, myself included, who were not here at the time.
Right.
And attitudes change and ideas about things change. And I think it's totally appropriate that we this grant investigate that idea. And I wouldn't want us to like say, oh, we looked at this already 30 or 40 years ago, so we're not going to look at it again. I just don't think
No,
that's
it
advisable.
sounded more recent than that, and I actually really was just asking to do my homework, so I
Yeah.
had some more idea of the history, but it's ancient history at this point.
Yeah.
So.
But save your notes, because if it does change, then 20 years from now, we're going to need them to
Yes.
go.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to ask, for what's coming up in the next meetings. Do we have items to be reviewed, or because I know I'm discussing, trying to get our walking meetings scheduled at some point. So I'm just wondering what's coming on our upcoming agendas for actual meetings.
Yeah, so the June 11th meeting, currently right now, we don't have any projects scheduled for that meeting. So I was potentially looking at a training video, and then also agendizing that discussion about the walking tour. That way we can get some initial thoughts and feedback, and get the whole board's consensus on what the scope of that walk is going to be. For the second meeting in June, we will have likely one use permit from Luma Optics. They're looking at taking over the old Bohemian Stoneworks building, and they have an office over on the corner of Moore Street where they're going to expand their warehousing kind of facility. So it is expansion of a non-conforming use, so it does require a use permit in that regard, but it does kind of bring the building up to current code and standards, so that's always helpful. And then also on that June 25th meeting will be the CIP update in compliance with the general plan. That'll come from GHD, or engineering consultant. I believe Tony Bertolero will probably give that report, if not Mario. So those are kind of the two upcoming meetings that we have. In the future here, pretty soon, we'll be looking at the Kathy Austin project. We are requiring a traffic study, which they have, that's kicking off here this week. And then once we get that in for review and finalized and stuff like that, we'll, as it does require a use permit, and there's a tentative map component of it, so the planning commission will see that as a formal application. If you guys remember, that came to you guys as a preliminary review, I think 2 years ago now. It was the end of 22, I think, or early 23. Yeah, it might have been January of 23. I think it went to design review board first. So they did include a bunch of the comments that planning commission had for them at that time. So that's kind of it as far as development stuff goes. Unfortunately, Peacetown has gone back to Ives Park this year, so they will not be coming through the temporary use permit kind of amendment component, but they will be having those events back at Ives Park. So I know that some people are happy about that. Some people are not,
Of course.
so, there's both sides of the story on that one. So I think that's about where we're at as far as projects and development stuff goes.
So if there's a meeting and the agenda is there's nothing being voted on, do we still need to have three present? Let's say we're just doing training, basically, is on the agenda. We still need to have three present members here to convene the meeting, or is that only for items that we're voting on? I mean, is that something that we could remotely?
I believe with the new Brown Act stuff, it would require a quorum in person still.
To
Even though
start
there's
the
no
meeting.
item being voted on, it does require an in-person quorum.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that's kind of unfortunate
Yeah,
for
no, that's-
an item that is a training component. So
Okay.
I'll be absent the 25th of June, just to let you know.
thank you. And if there's any other board members that have vacations or times off coming up, I know we're kind of entering that summer season when people like to take vacations. That would be great to know so we can plan accordingly.
Great. If there's nothing else, I will adjourn our meeting till June 11th. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
We were able to on the, I know that there was a question about the new minutes and stuff like that. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, yeah, Susie was able to figure that out, so it's super helpful. Yeah.